Hello again, college football fans. It is Tuesday, November the 2nd, and we are coming at you with your Week 10 prediction video. Starting off nationally, Georgia looks like they're the only team that has got their bags packed and that they are ready to party in the college football playoff. Everything else, obviously, Alabama's got to finish up their business and beat Georgia in order to go. Ohio State, I was hoping would look more dominant against Penn State than they did. That's a good win against a very hyped up, talented Penn State defense. But I was a little worried about how many points they gave up to them. I was really thinking that Ohio State was farther apart from the rest of the Big Ten than they looked against Penn State. Now maybe they'll prove me wrong going forward, but they don't look like they're, like they have their bags packed and ready for a playoff destination. Cincinnati is up in the air. Notre Dame and Cincinnati both really are still in the discussion. Wake Forest has got the entire nation's attention now. I don't think any of us think you can pull this off and go ahead and win out, but you certainly have the nation's attention. And I'm just like I said, there's just a lot of business that needs to be taken care of. Oklahoma has managed to win all of their games to this point, but their last three games are by far the toughest three-game stretch that they have all season. So, there's a lot of work for a lot of teams to be done. And then you've got your, Michigan hanging around with one loss. They could, come out of the Big Ten. I don't think they've got the troops to do it, but mathematically they're still involved. Michigan State obviously is undefeated. They don't look to me to be a primetime player, but like I said, there's plenty of teams that are still mathematically a part of this playoff run, and we've got a lot of games left to be played. November, I think this is shaping up to be probably the most important November that we've had in the history of the college football playoffs. Seems to me like a lot of teams, were ready to go by this point, and we had a pretty good idea of what the four teams were going to be. But and watch everything fall into place, and it wind up being Georgia and Alabama and Oklahoma and Ohio State, and everyone will say, "Well, there we go." But still, it's still out there, and we still have to play these games to see what's going to happen. Moving on to the predictions for this week. Starting off nationally, I am not going to do a big-time, 14-point underdog pick over a highly nationally ranked team. I'm gonna give some alerts. I've seen three games outside of the SEC with big name opponents that I think we should watch for. First off, Ohio State going to Nebraska. That's an 11 o'clock kickoff. I've spoken earlier about how those are death traps for favorite teams, especially after a big game like they had against Penn State, an emotional win for them, I'm sure. And now they've got to lace up and play a gritty Nebraska team that has lost a lot of close games, and they already pushed Oklahoma to the limit in their place earlier this season. So look out for that game. Michigan State, after their big win over the Big Blue, is having to go into Purdue. And Purdue is one of those Big Ten teams that they never win the Big Ten, but every other year it seems like they're ruining somebody else's party. So watch out for that one. And the third one was I had a third one picked, but I can't think of who that is right now. We'll circle back to that later if I can think of the third participant in my upset watch this week. But moving on to the conference, obviously we'll start off with the big one. Alabama, LSU, Tuscaloosa. We have the Lame Gorilla coming into T-Town. This game really depends all about, does LSU have one more, did they save up one more game's worth of effort against Alabama? I don't know. It seems like they might have spent their final wad on Florida earlier. Alabama coming off of an off week. I feel like they're going to be laser focused. They're still trying to atone for that loss to Texas A&M that they had earlier this season, and they're still meshing and still coming together, especially on offense. So I feel like they're going to score in a lot of different ways. Obviously, early, they seem to score every time they get the ball in their first offensive possession, so I don't feel like LSU will be able to stop them from doing that. And then immediately after that, they'll probably score again, either defensively or maybe B-Rob will get a run, but they should get a 14-point lead pretty quickly and then coast from there. I see the defense scoring. I see Bryce Young getting at least 3 touchdowns through the air, maybe one with his legs, and then maybe another running touchdown for B-Rob or Roydell. So I feel like I do feel like LSU is going to sneak in a touchdown at some point in this game, probably the first half. So I'm looking at a halftime score in this one of 28-7 Alabama, and then I think they'll just coast in the second half and wind up with a final score of 45-7 Alabama over LSU. Not a whole lot to say about this game. I don't feel like it's going to be a big problem for Alabama. I expect it to have a feel of a non-conference game against a non-Power 5 program, because that's what LSU has played like this season, going on to their last year in the Ed Orgeron era. So one of the less interesting Alabama LSU games that we've been rolling into, the last two really. I mean, last year I felt the same way, and Alabama came out and performed. I don't think LSU will be able to obviously score as many points. I mean, I said 7 is what they're going to get, as they did last year. So 45-7, that's what I'm going to stick with on that one. Going to the rest of the conference, Missouri at Georgia. Missouri barely was able to stay out of the cellar against Vanderbilt last week, and they haven't been able to pull off a conference victory other than that. And they lost to Boston College. It's turned out to be a very middle of the pack, if that, ACC school. So I don't see Georgia struggling too much in this one. I don't think Missouri is going to score. Georgia's defense definitely has a chip on their shoulder, and they're great. So Missouri, I don't see them getting close enough to even attempt a field goal early. And if they don't get a field goal early, they won't be going for field goals late, because that would just be silly. But 52-0 Georgia in this one. They look like they've really hit their stride, and there's not going to be, even if they do have a letdown, then they win 31-0 instead. So, but I'm going to stick with 52-0 Georgia's. It's time. I mean, they don't even have to pass the ball to score a touchdown every time they have the ball in this one. I don't think they could just run every single down and destroy this Missouri team. So look for that to happen. Liberty going to Ole Miss. We got Hugh Freeze coming back to Vaught Hemingway since he left in disgrace a few years ago. And, they've got a good program out there, and he's done some good things. But Lane Kiffin and Ole Miss have gone to about as high a level as you see Ole Miss go to this season. And I feel like their offense should be healed up a little bit after a rough stretch that they've gone on. Matt Corral should be back in the saddle again, and I look for them to score 45 points in this one. No, let's say 52. 52-38, because Ole Miss's defense is still not too much. But 52-38 Ole Miss against Liberty, in a little bit of a letdown game, I guess, after that big loss to Auburn. And speaking of Auburn, they are involved in the game of the week against Texas A&M. This is a very, very interesting game. Auburn, I don't believe, will be able to obviously run against Texas A&M the way they did against Ole Miss last week. Texas A&M has much better talent all across the defense, especially on the defensive line. So don't look for Auburn to be able to run as effectively as they did against Ole Miss. They'll be able to run a little bit, but not enough to get Bo Nix very comfortable in this game. And I think that'll be the problem for Auburn in this one. I don't think they'll be able to score very many points against A&M, and I think that A&M will be able to run pretty pretty well against Auburn, and look for Calzada to have another good game at quarterback, because this is his fourth game to start, and he's improved every game, and I don't see that stopping. And this is in College Station, and Texas A&M obviously has really hit a stride after they beat Alabama. So I see that continuing against the Tigers of Auburn. And Auburn's had a great run, and they fooled me 3 or 4 times already this year, and they may fool me again, because if they continue to improve, they can beat a team like Texas A&M absolutely in their place. But I feel like Texas A&M has their back up now, and they've hit their stride, it looks like, and I feel like that their talent might be just a hair above Auburn's. So expect Texas A&M to win this one 35-27 over Auburn, and that's a CBS game at 2:30. Mississippi State at Arkansas. This is another intriguing game. Very hard one to pick. I think I probably had the hardest time figuring out what I'm going to do with this game over the rest of them. Mississippi State, their defense, I don't think either team's offense is going to fare all that well. Looks like the styles of defenses that are played in this one are exactly the style that each offense doesn't want to have to look at. I mean, Mississippi State with the throwing and the air raid offense that Leach has brought in there is going against that umbrella defense that Arkansas likes to run. Basically, 3 linemen and then 8 defensive backs, basically going back. So they don't like that. Arkansas likes to run with that big Jefferson quarterback of theirs. Mississippi State's front seven is probably the strength of their whole team, actually. So they're going to slow Arkansas's performance down offensively a little bit with their defense. And in a game like this, that's this even, I think Arkansas, being home, coming off an off week, will be able to figure out how to score a few more points in this one than Mississippi State. I don't see this one getting very much past 30 for either team because of those defensive strategies that I've mentioned. So I'm thinking Arkansas is going to come away with a 31-28 victory in this one. Tennessee at Kentucky. I think Kentucky, got exposed a little bit against Georgia, but everybody Georgia's played this year has exposed them. But that continued with Kentucky, and I think that Tennessee, or continued at Mississippi State, I think that Tennessee has every bit the quarterback Mississippi State has, maybe not as good a passing attack, as Leach, is an expert at over there. But Tennessee's got a better running game. And I think that Tennessee's defense will be able to hold up well enough to get them another victory, a big victory, probably the biggest victory they've had this season. And Kentucky slide will continue. And I like Tennessee in this one, 34-28 over Kentucky. And then Florida, South Carolina. I tell you what, I really want to pick South Carolina to win this ball game, but I just don't think that they have the horses yet under the Shane Beamer regime in South Carolina to pull off, not a big upset because what Florida has become, but it would be an upset nonetheless. And so I expect Florida to come out and score some points against a decent South Carolina defense, but like I said, they just don't have the legs yet to be putting up a serious effort against Florida team. So let's say Florida goes in there and manages to score 38 points, and South Carolina will get away with 17. 38 Florida, 17 South Carolina. I was not ever able to think of my third upset watch, but we've got the 2 Big Ten teams, Ohio State and Michigan State, to look at. Wake Forest. Wake Forest was the other one because they've got North Carolina coming in. And North Carolina's 4-4, had a very disappointing season, but I do know that they still have some decent players, and they've got a quarterback who's had problems, but I don't know if they'll be able to pull it off. But that's one to watch for sure. North Carolina, Wake Forest. But that's going to be it for the predictions video, and looking forward to this weekend. It's going to be a fun one, and we'll speak to you soon.